Hello and welcome to another My Aspie Marriage video, and today I wanted to talk about anger management. And before I start that, I just want to talk about how I was processing at this point in time. I had started seeing my own counsellors because I wanted to see if there was anything that I could do to improve my own reactions and things like this. At this point in time, he was saying things to me like, "You're too sensitive, it's just you, all relationships are this way, all guys act this way, you're crazy, you're annoying," all of this sort of stuff. And so I was sort of wanting to better myself as well, because they say that it's two sides to every pancake. And what am I doing, to sort of have the situation be how it's turning out? And so I started seeing people, and I was getting frustrating advice like, you teach somebody how to treat you. And I was saying, well, I'm putting my foot down, I'm saying stop, I'm saying don't talk to me like that, I'm saying how dare you, I'm saying that's not okay. I said to them, I don't understand what it is that I'm meant to be doing that's teaching him to treat me better. And they said, well, you're staying, and by staying you're saying that how you treat me is okay. And I just felt like that's absolute cop-out. That's victim blaming. That's pretending that I'm the fault because I'm choosing to be here. And I just didn't buy that, not even nearly. I just thought that there has to be more to it than that, because even if I left, that wouldn't mean an end to my situation. He would still be in my world because we have children together. So he would still be antagonizing me and having shots at me and using the children against me and all of this sort of stuff. And even if by sheer chance he wasn't doing that, he would then be free to move on to some other poor victim. And I didn't like that idea either. I thought there's no learning in there. He hasn't sort of learned that because I've left him, I must be this really sort of aggressive, verbally abusive, over the top person, and I've suddenly realized this because she's left. Ask anybody who's in any kind of abusive relationship and they'll tell you that never happens. Usually the person will stalk them and become even more abusive, and in some cases they even kill exes and things like this because they can't stand the fact that their ex left, or they abuse the children and the exes aren't there to protect them and things like this. So I just didn't buy that. There was no part of me that thought, oh, if I leave all my problems will be resolved. I knew they wouldn't. I knew they wouldn't because the issues were coming from within him, and unless he dealt with those, we were going to be having constant issues. So that's sort of where I was standing with that. And so now if we get on to the anger management, we moved into my house and we were there for quite a while I was doing it up. Then we saw Counsellor Jeff, and in that video I mentioned that he'd seen the anger management person maybe 8 months later. That's not actually true, because we lived in that house for a little while longer before we then moved into the next house where the housework saga began. And so it was a few years after that somehow I convinced him, or he convinced him, or somehow it happened that he finally saw an anger management person, and he had something like 10 classes with this guy or something like that. And one of the things that he had to do was give me a questionnaire about where I was sitting on the sort of fear scale. And he learned from those anger management classes that I was living on what the counsellor called eggshells. I was walking on eggshells because I never knew when the next outburst was going to happen. Now I will just interject here for a moment and confess that when I found out he was on the spectrum, my first thought was, oh, that explains his anger. And then I sort of mistakenly assumed that this is something that all autistic people do. All autistic people are verbally abusive, yelling at their partners, standing over them, bullying them, railroading them, badgering them, nagging them until they get everything that they want. And obviously I've since learned that that's not the case. Each autistic individual is individual and all upbringings and history and everything like that play a part in how a person develops. That being said, I had said to Counsellor Jeff that I think that his upbringing is what's making him this angry, because regardless of how much he tried to tell me I was the reason for his anger, I knew that I wasn't. I knew that there was something wholly else, something else that was causing that type of rage. And so we do the anger management thing. He finds out that I'm walking on eggshells and he starts to make improvements. He learned from that class that whenever you feel tense and angry, step away from the situation. Get in your car and go for a drive. Get out of the house and go for a walk. Go to the gym. Do something to get you away from that situation. Have yourself a little bit of a thought about it. Calm down and then come back to it in a calm manner. Now, it was great advice. It wasn't always adhered to, because when you're in the heat of the moment, it's really hard to step away. And even if he went out and then came back, he didn't necessarily approach it from a calm place because he's still bothered by whatever that thing was. So the anger management was good, but it still didn't really get to the actual reason why he was as angry as he was. It wasn't really touched on. And so we were still having these constant situations where he would have these mad, angry outbursts. He would come in from wherever and be yelling at us about, why is this thing on the bench and why aren't the dishes put away, and who stacked the dishwasher, they've done a really crap job, and the stovetop isn't clean, and when was the washing hung out, why hasn't it been brought back in, and da-da-da-da. And even as I'm speaking it to you now, I'm being a whole lot calmer than how he was dishing that out. He was very angry, very aggressive, and he would yell and get really positional about things. And of course, getting back to what I was saying right at the beginning, where people were saying you teach them how to treat you, I never laid down like a dead dog and went, okay, yes sir, 3 bags full, sir. I would always defend myself. I would always defend the children. There was no part of me that was just sitting back and letting this go. And it was a case of, for anybody who's dealt with anybody who has anger, you'll understand this. As soon as you start defending yourself, they're even more pissed off because they don't want to be wrong. Even if they're really drastically wrong, they don't want to be wrong. We have children, and obviously if you've watched my parenting video, you will know that he wasn't parenting the way that I wanted. He wasn't parenting the way that I was saying would work. He was just disregarding my parenting skills completely. And he could not control the children. He just couldn't. There were moments where he would be in the room watching telly, and the children, at this stage we did only have one, at the stage that he did the anger management, And he would be trying to get that child to do something, behave, stop doing this, something. And I could hear this going on, and the child was just like, I'm not going to do what you say, because why do I need to? There's no consequence. And I would just go and stand in the doorway, and the child would be instantly behaving. Mum's here, I gotta watch what I'm doing now. And I would point to the child and say, out, and then, that would be leaving Dad alone. In the case of him, if he couldn't control the child, he would then get really aggressive and sometimes even smack the child. He would hit them across the face, which, major no-no for me. Like, don't touch the children. I would be really, really ferocious then, like a tigress. Don't touch the children. And so this is where the anger was sort of going. It was just out of control. And so, as I say, even though he did anger management, he still couldn't control his environment. And again, I go back to what I said before, because it was never touched on what was causing this anger, which was his lack of control. It was never really tackled. Like, nobody was ever saying to him, you're actually not meant to have 100% of control. And how he would say to me, this is normal, all relationships roll this way, all guys are like this. Well, I started saying in the later years, oh, how many men have you dated? Full sarcasm. And he'd be like, none. And I said, okay then, so you don't know at all whether any man does this aside from you. And I was just trying to get him to sort of really understand that there was something going on with him, this need for control, this bullying thing that he did, this bull-headed thing where he would badger and nag and pester and berate and belittle and yell you into submission, and I would never submit. And of course, this was a continual, ongoing situation for us because I wouldn't submit. But that being said, I have always wondered, if I submitted, what would that have looked like? Would he have been happier, nicer, calmer? I do not believe so. I think that his need for control was so overwhelming that no amount of submission was ever going to work, because you cannot have 100% of control, primarily because he works outside of the house and I'm the home carer, the home giver, the home maker. I stay home and I mind the children and I look after the house. So there's hours, weeks, days that he's not home to control stuff. And then when he comes home and sees that things have happened beyond his control, that would make him angry. And also, when he would work away, he would call me up on the phone. And you'd just be casually talking about how your day had gone. And you'd say the wrong thing. You wouldn't know that it was the wrong thing. He would just say, what did you get up to today? And you'd say X, Y, Z, and then he'd be exploding on the phone because he didn't like that answer. And you're just like, it's inescapable. So, yeah, that's sort of the gist of how anger management worked. It sort of taught him a little bit of something, but it didn't teach him the reason behind his anger, the actual cause of it, and really what to do about the fact that life was never going to be within your control. And from your perspective, where do you think it sits with regards to your staying, and therefore that teaches them how to treat you? Do you agree with that statement? Do you really think that it's that simple, that If everybody in abusive relationships left their abusers, all these abusers are suddenly going to have light bulb moments because they're single. All of their problems will go away. You know, they'll suddenly treat you with respect when dealing with dropping off and picking up the children because you've got shared custody. You know, I mean, it's ludicrous to think it. I think it was said on Dr. Phil or something like that, and then it just became this idiot catchphrase that every person and their dog was saying as a way of like trying to counsel people. But it's just not true. It's really just not that simple. It's blaming the victim as opposed to saying it's the abuser that needs the help. It's the abuser that needs to work on themselves. They're the ones that need to get to the actual issues of what's driving their anger or their possessiveness or whatever is their deal. And as an individual who stays with that person, you can try your best to manage it. And admittedly, I did stay because my relationship was not physical abuse, it was just verbal abuse. And to be honest, it's water off a duck's back. You can say what you want. I know the truth. And again, this was part of our problem. I knew my truth. It didn't matter what he said to me about me. I knew when he hit the nail on the head. Trust me. There's this feeling you get in your guts. It kind of knots up and you're like, oh, that was painfully truthful. Ick. And then there's times where people say things and you just know that's not who you are, you know. And so I was like that. I was like, you can say what you want. I don't believe you. All I want from you is to just stop being so damn angry so that me and the children can just live this harmonious life with you and all would be well. Anyway, so that's how anger management went for us. Let me know if you've done anger management yourself or your partner has done anger management and how that went for you and if you felt that it was beneficial or not. Personally, I would suggest that any person with anger issues go and do anger management. I think it's really imperative for people with anger issues to learn far more productive ways to deal with that anger. And that being said, I also think it's very important that the person learn the actual reasons that they're angry, because it's not others, it's you. It's just that simple. It's not me, it's you. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video.